Pretty emotional group today. Thanks for being here. Appreciate everybody being here. It is Florida State week, which is always an emotional week for our players, for our coaches, for our fan base. Anytime we have an opportunity to play what I consider a geographical rivalry game, I know it always creates a lot of excitement and energy. Anytime we have a chance to play Florida like we did a couple years ago, Miami year in and year out, the rivalries we've had with Central Florida, Florida State, anytime you have an opportunity to play an in-state game, it just creates an awful lot of excitement because when you look at the state of Florida, the alumni are so intertwined with each other. And so it really creates just a lot of excitement and energy. And for our players, they've played with a lot of these players on this team. They've played against a lot of the players on this team. And I'm sure there's a lot of texting, Facebooking, and trash talking going back between Tallahassee and Tampa this week amongst all the players. But I think we're really excited about having the opportunity to play in this game. Really excited to have the opportunity to play at home here in Tampa. You know, when you look at Florida State on film, they're an impressive team. I know there's been a lot written about them. There's been a lot said about them, about their talent, their explosiveness, where they are statistically. They're putting up video game type numbers. When you look at them right now, I think it is a very, very talented football team. They've been working for a couple years to put this team together, and I've really been impressed sitting down and looking at them. Right now, when you start with them defensively, statistically, they're like second in total offense. They're, I think it's fourth in pass, fifth in rush, sixth in score, and that's not in the conference, that's in the country. When you look at them, their numbers are almost gaudy. They're giving up 184 yards a game, I think, defensively. They're extremely explosive. When you look at a football team like this, a lot of times you think of Florida State, you think speed. And when you think speed, you think, okay, you have a chance to run at them. When I look at this football team, I see speed and explosiveness. I think they're fast, but yet I think they're extremely physical. Their leading tacklers are defensive end, which gives you a little bit of insight that you don't get past the front four very often. I think their defensive ends are very athletic and they rush the edges, but yet at the same time, I think what they're doing with their inside three techniques, their defensive tackles are extremely explosive. They are more or less taking the line of scrimmage and pushing it back a couple yards with what they're doing with their defensive tackles. Very athletic with what they do. They're giving up 19% on third down. I think their linebackers are athletic. They can run. Their secondary, they play an awful lot of man coverage. Their secondary, they've got a corner. He's 6'2", 217. He's bigger than a couple of our linebackers, but yet he's one of the best cover corners in the country, even with his size. They've got a very talented football team, very talented defensive team when you look at them. Same thing when you go to the offensive side of the ball. Different team than we've been watching the last couple years. Excuse me. They're scoring 56 points a game. They're putting up a lot of numbers. They're putting up 574 yards a game. I think they're rushing for about 270. They're throwing for 290, I think it is. They're putting up some huge numbers. They had almost 700 yards against Clemson last week, which is the top 10 football team, and they had almost 700 yards against them. And everybody says, what's the difference? I think you've got a tailback averaging 10.5 yards a carry. Normally, that's what you see a receiver average on a reverse that runs about 2 or 3 reverses a year. Their leading ball carriers averaging 10 yards a carry. He's got great speed. I think James Wilder, who we watched play in high school, is extremely physical. They've got a good stable and combination of backs that give them the ability to get into a lot of different personnel sets and groupings and still be able to run the ball. Their quarterback, they're running him more than they have in the past. He's their third leading rusher. He's throwing the ball very accurately at 300 yards a game and really doing a great job. I think he's really matured and grown, and I think he's doing an excellent job. The wide receivers are doing it by committee, but I think one of the big differences with this football team is watching their offensive line. I think their offensive line is very athletic, but they are really doing a nice job coming off the ball. They're very aggressive, they're athletic, and they're creating running holes. And you get those athletes into open space, and they're able to do and create a lot of damage for a football team. Special teams, they're explosive, they run. They've got 2 punt return touchdowns, a kickoff return for 90 yards. I mean, I could sit here and go through all the statistics and what they are. They're very impressive on film. It's going to be a great opportunity for us kind of see where we rank, where we rank with a top 5 team in the country. A team that I'm sitting there listening to all the talking heads talk about, is there anybody kind of on the planet that can play with this team? When you look at them top to bottom, because they are very talented, and they're one of the better football teams in the country without a doubt. So it'll be a great opportunity for us to play them at home, and it'll be a great measuring stick to see where we are with the top 5 program in the country.
Coach,
What questions could I answer?
So you just talked about, it's the glowing review for Florida State. What do you tell your players in terms of getting ready for this challenge? And is this the toughest game that they may have faced in their careers?
I'm just thinking back, I think from a talent standpoint, probably real similar. I mean, when you look at, this is probably the best football team that we've played since I've been here. It's probably the best football team. But at the same time, I mean, we've played in some big football games in the past, and you got to line up and you got to play it. I don't think the players will be intimidated. I think they're excited about the opportunity to play. They understand that the last couple of weeks we have not played stellar football, and this is an opportunity to go out and kind of perform against, like I said, the top 5 team in the country right now. And I think they're excited about the opportunity. I recited many of the statistics to them that I did to you. I want them to understand exactly what they're up against. I mean, we're going to have to play a great football game if we want to have any type of chance at all. And you look at a team like Clemson, that's a top 10 team in the country, has one of the better defenses in the country, give up almost 700 yards and 50 points. I mean, this team can embarrass you in a heartbeat now. They have the talent and ability to embarrass a lot of people. So it's going to be a great opportunity for us. But I'm not running from it. It is a glowing report. I mean, you look at it, these are the numbers that they've put up. This is the talent they have. When you put on the film, they're a good football team. They're a great football team. And it's going to be a great opportunity for us.
How much of their body of work can you even pay attention to when you're at this point? They've played maybe 1.5 real games. That might be stretching it.
I think if you just look at
throw out the other stuff.
Well, if you just look at Clemson, the top 10 team where they have 700 yards and score 50 points, or 650 yards, whatever that was that they had. Just look at what they did to Clemson. I think they showed the depth of talent that they have. It's not just that they have a talented running back. They have 3 or 4 of them. It's not just that they have a talented linebackers. They have 6 of them. They don't have just talented linemen. They have 9 of them. And they're rolling a lot of guys and playing a lot of people. They have a lot of depth. They have a lot of talent. And that's why that's why it'll be such a great challenge. But I don't think the numbers are kind of how to lie with statistics, just because of who they played in the first 2 games of the year.
I mean, as a coach, when you're scouting, are you paying attention to all 4 to this point? Do you look at the Clemson game and say, this is what they do when they're playing a real
Yes,
game?
I mean, because they did different things against Clemson than they did earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, they played some man coverage, but they played with big cushions, but when they want to get after somebody, their corners are going to get up in your face. They're going to play man coverage. They're going to press you. They're going to try and shadow you all over the field. Their safeties are going to run downhill, and they're going to be very aggressive with their front 7. And that's what I saw. They ran their quarterback quite a bit at Florida State, at Clemson, which they hadn't done in weeks prior. And he is a tremendous athlete. And we know he can run the ball. So I think you probably take more from the Clemson game than you do from the first 3, and it was their last one as well.
Coach, you talked about the excitement the guys have. Pretty spirited practice today.
Yes.
Has it been boosted this week?
It has, and I think that's for a combination of reasons. We had a pretty long, lengthy team meeting about where we are and what we had done to this point in our last 2 weeks. Kind of as a football team, and where we've been, kind of what we've done, what we've accomplished, let's look at a 4-game review of where we are and how we got to where we are. And we had some people that had to answer some questions, and we had some kind of a players-only meeting when that was done, and I think there's been a renewed sense of excitement or enthusiasm right now with this football team, just kind of going back to basics about what we started with, what we think this football team can become. I think the Florida State game and the in-state rivalry game has something to do with it. I think team meeting, the player-only meeting, has something to do with it on Sunday. I think the players are excited about the challenge and the opportunity that they have in front of them, and they realize that we can't go out and go through the motions. I mean, we better go out and play well. We can't have all the penalties. We can't have double-digit penalties like we did at Ball State. We can't have 5 turnovers like we did at Rutgers. I mean, we're going to have to play a well-rounded football game, or we'll get run out of the stadium. Yes, sir.
Skip, when you're playing a team like this, obviously very talented, how do you use that as motivation to focus your kids, get them to really kind of bear down this week, knowing that this is a challenge? Is it a motivational tool you can use when you have a team that you're playing like that?
Well, I don't know if it's a motivational tool. It's pretty motivating to put on the film. When you put on the film and it's kind of like, oh, okay, we'll have a ball game this week. Okay, we got to go. I mean, we got to play. And I say we got to play. I think this team has played extremely hard. We've got to play smart. We keep saying that. I mean, we've got to play smart. We talk every week about what it takes to win and what we need to do to win. And eliminating the turnovers and the penalties and so many of the foolish mistakes that we seem to shoot ourselves in the foot. I talked about not being able to get off the field on 3rd down. I mean, in the last 2 games, we've had 22 3rd and 7 or mores. And we're only at 50%. And as a defensive football team, when you put them in 3rd long yardage situations, you want to get paid. I mean, that's when you want to get off the field. And we haven't been able to get off the field. I mean, that's where you want to have an 80 or 90% batting average, and we had been there. But when you really start to break it down, I think 5 of those are penalties. 5 of those are penalties that leave us off the field. That's 5 more times you're off the field, and you're in these 1-score games. I mean, it's been that close. Those are the things that I think right now when they sit down and they watch that Florida State film, they understand we need to continue to play hard, but we need to play smart this week. But right now, I think they're really excited about the opportunity. So motivating, I mean, put on the film. I mean, that's one of those, ooh, here we go. Like I said, you could get embarrassed against a team like this. And they've embarrassed a lot of people.
Skip, it's not the same connection as you had with Notre Dame, obviously, last year, but what do you ask about the 2 years you had in Tallahassee and kind of what your fondest memories are of getting your start under Coach Bowden?
Well, he gave me my opportunity to get into coaching, and I am very grateful to him for that. He was the person that really, like I said, that got me started in this profession. A lot of the coaches that were there, and Wayne McDuffie and John Eason and Mark Richt and Chuck Amato and Mickey Andrews and a lot of those guys that I had an opportunity to learn football from. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had there. The first person I met when I walked into the office was my wife. I mean, obviously, I'm very grateful for having her in my life, along with my 3 children and everything else. And Sue Hall, Coach Bowden's secretary, was a huge part of introducing us. I've got great memories from Florida State and great times from when I was there. A lot of the players that were there I still stay in touch with from when I was a graduate assistant there, but I have very fond memories of that place. It's changed quite a bit since I was there. I don't know if that's a plus and how much they've changed or how long ago it was that I was there because it was a while ago. It seemed like it was 22, 24 years ago that I was there, quite a while ago. But it's a good place, and I've got great memories from Tallahassee.
Dawsey, somebody you would have worked very closely with, right?
Yeah, Lawrence Dawsey was a player there when I was a graduate assistant with the wide receivers. We had Terry Anthony and Lawrence Dawsey and Bruce Lassane and Ronald Lewis. There were some really good players there during that time, working with the receivers. And then right now, I mean, I've known Jimbo for a long time. I've known Coach Fisher for a long time, and have a lot of respect for the job that he does. And Greg Hudson, their linebacker coach, was our defense coordinator at East Carolina for a lot of years. Greg and I played college football together. I've got great respect for him and the type of football coach that he is. I know their linebackers are going to be tough, and they can run, and they're going to utilize their athleticism in space. I know he's an excellent football coach. So there's some old ties and some new ties. I mean, with the current connections that I have with their staff there. So I'm excited about the opportunity to play.
Yes, sir. Recruiting-wise, how important is it to have a strong showing against these guys? Since a lot of times you're going to go out knocking on the same doors.
Yeah, I think it definitely matters anytime you play an in-state school, because you're always going to have some people that are considering both. And so I think it definitely makes some inroads, gives you some inroads for that, to have the opportunity to recruit against your in-state schools. And that's part of the geographical rivalry with where we are, not just for our fan base, but for our recruiting base where we are. That definitely plays a role in it.
You weren't here 3 years ago when the we played at FSU,
Yes.
but there's several coaches, close to a dozen players. Are they bringing anything to meetings or on the field? Talk about that experience to this game?
No, Larry Scott was here, and Kevin Patrick, and some of the coaches that we've talked to about the differences. They were different. They were different scheme defense then. They had different defensive coordinators. They ran different things. So it's really, offensively and defensively, it doesn't help a lot schematically. We can watch the film from what we did, but it was different then. I mean, it was different then than it is now from a scheme standpoint. But I'm sure for a B.J. Daniels, I mean, I know being from Tallahassee, and this was a very emotional game for him. And just like I'm sure that he's going to remember back 4 years ago to playing this game, and I'm sure they have some members of their team that are going to remember back too. And their memories probably aren't going to be as fond, as BJ's, and I'm sure will be a little bit of a motivating factor for them as well. And I'm sure they're tired of hearing about that game 4 years ago, and I'm sure that's part of their motivating factor in coming in here this year.
Looking back on last week, you were able to establish a running game. How are you going to be able to do that against a team that's only given up 40 to 45 yards rushing?
Yeah, definitely going to be difficult. I mean, because when you look at, like I said, with their defensive end being their leading tackler and their defensive tackles being as physical as they are and their linebackers being able to run, I believe only 2 teams in the last 2 years have rushed for 100 yards against them. So when you look at them, there aren't many people that have had the opportunity to run the ball against them, and most of them that have, like I watched the Wake Forest game that was a couple weeks ago, and I mean, I think Wake had one run where they broke through. It seemed to only make them mad because I don't think the rest of the day they had anything over a longer run than 5 yards. They had to run for about 35, 40 yards early in the game. But after that, they completely shut down the running game. It makes it very difficult. That's part of the challenge that we're going to have, is being able to. You can't just drop back and throw it because of the way that they can rush the passer and the pressure they can put with their defensive ends on the quarterback. But you can't sit back and throw it every play. But it's tough sledding to get the ball running because it's hard to run around them, and it's very difficult to run as physical as they are. And normally, you try and run at a fast defense. That's why I said fast and physical would probably be the way that I would summarize their defensive unit.
How pleased were you, though, last week that you were able to establish some sort of running game?
I was excited with the way the running backs ran. I thought Lindsey Lamar ran extremely hard, and Demetrius Murray ran really hard, and being able to rush for 200 yards was much better than we had been doing up until that point. So it was nice to get that started again. I still don't think we're coming off the ball on the offensive line the way we need to compete at the level that we're going to have to compete at this week, and that's why we're going out there to practice and continue to make those points of emphasis as we move forward.
Is this going to be similar to a bowl type experience in terms of just the atmosphere of Raymond James Stadium could be split right down the middle with garnet and gold and
yeah, I'm
gray
sure
gold?
they're going to have a lot of people. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of people here. I mean, they have a lot of alumni in the Tampa area that are going to be excited to see them come to Tampa, but probably be a lot like that. I think there'll be a lot of excitement and energy in the stadium.
I know when I go to a Rays-Yankees game as a fan, I'm almost offended that half the stadium's rooting against the home team. I mean,
Right.
and it's like join the community, people. I mean,
Right.
mentally, how do you? I mean, are you even having a home game this week? I mean, how much? What are you expecting?
I think so. I think it's at home.
But I mean, this could
I thought-
2/3 of the stadium could be rooting against you.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that's, I mean, you look at Florida State and what they've done and how they've built that program. I go back 22 years ago when I went there, and they had just come off the All-American Bowl at that point in time. And the stadium seated about 40,000 people, and it was half filled most of the time. And that was when Coach Bowden started with his string of 11 wins, and we went to the Fiesta Bowl and beat Nebraska that year, and then went to the Sugar Bowl, beat Auburn the next year, and then that's kind of when things started really rolling downhill. And you look at where it is now with their new stadium and their following, and it's been built over time. It wasn't built overnight. It was built over time, and it's very similar to what we're trying to do here. Build it here as a young program, and to build it, I would expect with the success and the length that their program has been around and the success that they've had, that they would have a bigger fan base. But that's also part of the challenge that we have this week, is having an opportunity to play a program like Florida State that has had the opportunity to have that success as young as we are. We talked about that last year and going to Notre Dame. That was one of the great challenges for that. So I don't look at I don't get mad because we're going to walk in there and there's going to be Florida State fans in our stadium. I would expect there to be. But I also am really excited about our team having the opportunity to play a game of this magnitude at home.
I want to ask you about Lindsey Lamar and just about just the way he's prepared himself going into the role he has now and how he goes about things that way.
Just every day, professional. Lindsey's he's not one of those guys that is on an emotional high or an emotional low. You know, he's always very even keeled, no matter how you talk to him. He's a fantastic young man. I mean, when you sit down and visit with him and really get to know him, he's a very deep individual. And he's very concerned about, his future and his family and a lot of those things as a senior that you start to look at when that light at the end of the tunnel, I mean, it's starting to show up now, as you're getting into, because he's going to graduate and be done at the end of this semester. But he is a professional, and I say a professional, and that he comes to work every day. He's always got his mind right. He's not one of some days he comes low or high. Every day he shows up. He works extremely hard. He's a great young man. He's very mild-mannered and very even-keeled. When you sit down and talk to him, it's hard to picture him out there on the field, playing such a physical football game, because he is such a great young man and such a soft-spoken young man. But he's, I think the world of Lindsey Lamar. I think the world of him.
Do you like the chatter that's going on back and forth between, as long as it's friendly and good-spirited, between Florida State and some of your players?
I think that's part of what a rivalry is. I mean, I love rivalries in college football. One of the things that I have not liked about the Big East to this point in time is we don't have any geographical rivalries. We don't have a natural rivalry game. And that's one of the things that excites me the most about Central Florida coming into the Big East. I think these games are healthy for all the programs. I think this is where you grow. This is where you have an opportunity to grow, when your fan base gets excited and they get involved. And I think these are great. I love rivalry games. I love them. I think it just creates that much more excitement. When I was at South Carolina, I had the opportunity to play Clemson every year. When I was at Notre Dame, and you had Michigan when I was at Florida State, and you had Florida every year. Those games that you play every year that create that excitement, I think these are healthy for college football, college athletics. I think it's healthy for both programs involved. And I think it's great that we've had the opportunity in 3 years now to play Florida, Florida State, and Miami, and then with Central Florida coming on. And I think if we're going to play, we might as well keep everything in state and play each other. I think this is healthy for the entire state of Florida, for these rivalry games to go on for all of our fan bases, for our players. I think the chatter is part of it. As long as the chatter stops when we put the ball on the tee, and then it's about playing the game of football. And normally these games play that way. There's a lot of talk beforehand, but then once you put the ball on the tee, they're extremely clean, hard-fought football games, because both teams have so much respect for each other on the field. I hope we can keep it that way in the fan base as well.
Coaches, keeping their offense off the field an important part of your offensive game plan, and does that affect how many chances you're going to take down the field?
Yeah, that's part of it, but the problem is they don't allow you to do that very, very well, because they don't allow you to run the ball. So they kind of make it hard. That's why they're so good, because they make it hard to control the ball, but yet their offense is so explosive. I think the bottom line is you're going to have to score some points. I don't think this one's going to be about trying to go 3 yards in a cloud of dust and just control the ball, because you're going to end up punting it quite a bit. And at the end of the day, you're not going to score many points. I think when you look at Clemson, they scored, but they scored on a throwback pass, a screen pass that was thrown back to a running back across the field. Kind of razzle-dazzle type plays. When you look at Clemson, they didn't take the ball and just consistently march down the field. There were big plays involved. So you can't call this one close to the vest, so to speak, but you've got to be careful that you don't try and play it too wide open, because they have a chance. They have the ability to score on defense as well. With the way that they run. So you just got to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to take care of the football and give your football team the best chance to succeed. But you got to score points, because they're going to. Even if we play great on defense, they're going to score some points. When we went up there and won 4 years ago, I believe it was, we won 17-7. I think this offensive football team would be very difficult to hold them to 7 points.
What was your reaction back then when you saw that score?
A great win for South Florida. I mean, great win. I believe Florida State had 6 losses that year. You know, I mean, I believe they lost 6 games that year, but I do remember just from a geographical rivalry game. When I talk about those, you know, we have a rivalry with Rutgers. We have a rivalry with Louisville. I mean, but these are the games that their fan base is littered in the Tampa area, just like ours is littered in the Tallahassee area. So I mean, that's what makes those great geographical rivalry games.
With as many points as FSU's been scoring and how good they are against the run, is this one of those games that you're going to have to open up the playbook?
Yeah, you need to. I mean, you need to try and find a way to score points. I mean, you know, one thing we've got to keep telling them, a punt is not a bad play. You know, I would have taken that 2 weeks ago at Rutgers, and I'm not saying that in a negative light. I'm just saying I'd rather punt it away and make them drive 80 yards than I would turn the ball over, because we're just trying to open it up and score a million points. And that's why we've got to be good with that football. We've got to take care of that football and then see where the flow of the game is going to take us.
The last 3 weeks especially, BJ's just been really good in big moments. And I mean, if you're watching the game, you know, BJ's going to drive us 99 yards. BJ's running for his life. He's going to throw it 60 yards. BJ's going to do something. You know, if we're in trouble, BJ's going to save us. I mean, how much of that is a good thing because he's played so well? How much is maybe, you know, you get over-reliant on one guy?
I don't think it's a reliance standpoint. Like I talked about, you know, Lindsey Lamar has played much better for us and carried a little bit more of the load in the running game. But, I mean, I think our offensive line has got to play better. I don't think anybody's sitting down saying BJ will make a play. We've got to play better as an offensive line. And I've talked rather for about the last 2 weeks on that I'm not very pleased with the progress we're making up front. We've got to do a better job, because right now BJ is playing very well, but he has to, because as I said, he's playing Houdini back there trying to get away from the rush most of the time. And it's not very often that he has a chance to drop back and sit his feet and be able to throw the ball down the field and read. He's really made an awful lot of plays happen, and I am very grateful for his feet right now and his playmaking ability, because he has really kept some things alive. And I think BJ's been playing. I think he's played very well the last couple of weeks. I think he's really growing as a quarterback, as a competitor, as a leader. What he's doing with this offensive football team right now is what you expect great players to do. So, I mean, if you're asking me, do I want to give up a great player because we become too reliant on him? No, I'd like a couple more of them, to be honest. I'd like a couple more, but I'm really proud of the way that he has grown as a quarterback, as a leader. What he's doing right now on the football field, I really think his focus, his passion, he is becoming a true leader of this football team.
Thanks, man.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.